night is young, but it's way past dinner time. We've all been trapped with COVID-19, but tonight we can party like it's sweet 16. You're all dressed up in your best bags of fruit. Ain't it great to get out of that bloody tracksuit? You've been here so long, you've worked such long days. Tonight is not a swan song, it's our turn to play. So glad you came along. We're gonna laugh and sing all night long. Forget your troubles and worries, that's all you gotta do. It's good to get out of your silk pajamas. Maybe one day we'll fly to the Bahamas. Maybe, I don't know. You know, we don't know what's going to happen with our international travel, do we? But JobKeeper has finally run out, and yeah, that's the end of the government shout. We're on our own now, we'll have to make our own way, but I'm sure as hell you're going to have to know that ScoMo will make us pay, I'm sure. Glad you came along. We're going to laugh and sing all night long. Forget your troubles and worries, that's all you gotta do. Okay, thank you. Hello, Woolgoolga. Welcome. Yeah, thank you. Brothers and sisters of the Woolgoolga Senior Citizen Set. Tonight, we are here. We're going to celebrate growing old disgracefully. We're going to be paying homage. Homage is a French word, and it translates into the Australian, and it means we're going to be taking the pee-pee out of our long lives. We're going to be able to laugh at our long lives and all the dumb, stupid things we've all done, and continue to do. I know I have, and continue to do that. Can I have maybe a hallelujah, brothers and sisters? Hallelujah! Thank you very much. It's all great to be here in Woolgoolga. Tonight, we are going to heal ourselves. We're going to heal all those wounds and the scars that we hold deep inside us from the times when we had to suck it up and be nice to our dopey brother-in-law because it was Christmas. And all you really wanted to do was shove his face into the Christmas pudding because he's such an idiot. Maybe that's just me. Sorry about that. Yeah. All those times, those embarrassing times when you pee like clockwork every morning at 6 a.m. but you don't get out of bed till 10. Surely I'm not the only one that's done that. Or dumb times, like you're driving home from work, your wife rings you up on the phone and she says, look out, there's a lunatic on the freeway going the wrong way. And you go, there's not just one, there's hundreds. Hello and welcome to Seniors Week. Look, thank you. I don't know what I'm doing here because I am way too young to be talking to you lot about what it's like to be a senior. No laughter at all. Yeah. and I know you're looking at yourself, well, what would he possibly know about what it's like to be a senior? Well, the fact is, I'm a fully paid up member of the Senior Citizens Club. I have a gold opal card, yeah. I mean, this is as useless as tits on a ball for you people up here in Woolgoolga. But if you ever want to catch a plane, oh sorry, not a plane, they're not that good, a train, a ferry or a bus in Sydney, you can do it all day for $2.50. That's why it's gold, gold, gold for Australia. Yeah. So, yeah, and I know because when I was when I was 65 years of age, but I don't feel 65. You know, I feel 62, 63 tops. You know, and but you know, life emotionally, I feel about 20. You know, I'm still a child. You know, but and I don't have to tell you, like that never leaves you, does it? Right? You know, like how old do you feel, mate, on the inside?
I think bit older than principal.
In what?
Bit older than principal.
Principal? Oh, really? You've had a hard life, right? What have you done all your life? Did you do prison time, or? Oh, sorry.
Live hard, die young, but
Oh, good on you. Yeah, it's good. But we never feel our age because it's really hard to actually quantify what we actually feel, what our age is, you know. And I always thought that one day I would grow up and act my age, but you know, I'm still the same dumb rat bag I was when I was in my 20s, right? Just never left me. And Because when you get to our age, time you think about your age in decades, right? Whole decades fly by. So you're in your 50s or your 60s, right? But when you're a kid, when you're about 3, right? You're not about 3. You're 3 and a half, nearly 4, or you're 3 3/4, nearly 4. You can't wait to grow up, right? That's why time goes so slow. But when you get to our age, time flies by in seconds, Like, that's why we can't remember anything, right? Because there's too much is going on. I walked into the room, and the other day, and I had no idea what I was doing in there. I'd been in the garage, I came into the house, I stood there, what am I doing here? Then I realised we don't have a garage. And I thought to myself, this is not my house, this is not my beautiful wife, how did I get here, As the days go by, let the water hold me down, Yeah, but the good thing about getting old, I think, is mowing the lawn and then waking up the next day surprised to see it mowed. Who knows that? I guess I did, but I'd forgotten. But sometimes you don't know how old you are. But your friends will tell you in a second. Like if you fall over and they start taking the piss out of you and say, you had a bit too much to drink, did you, Al? Or did you go for a nice trip? You're young, right? But if you fall over and people rush to your assistance, right? Oh, can you smile? Can you smile? Yeah, no, she can't smile. Can you raise your arms up? Oh, no. Can you know who you are? Yeah. Oh no, we're losing. Get the defib in here, Craig, straight away. Yeah, everyone clear. Oh, yeah, mouth to mouth, we're losing this one. Sting alive. Oh, mouth to mouth, no. Yeah, sorry, we lost this one. Yeah, bad luck, mate. Yeah, couldn't revive him. But what I find now is that most of my injuries happen when I'm asleep. You know that? Like the other night, I'm lying in bed asleep and I get this shocking cramp in my leg. It felt like someone was dragging a dagger from the back of my knee right up to my butt, It was horrible. And I'm trying to muffle my sounds, my groans, but my wife Susan's right beside me. And I go, and it was horrible. It went on for an hour, right? And it used to be that I would exercise and get a cramp, but now I get it from sleeping. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to have to, do yoga and stretch before I go to bed so I don't injure myself while I'm sleeping. It's crazy. And sometimes I wake up and I've got such a bad neck, I can't turn my head for a week without turning my whole body. If we're at a restaurant somewhere, Sue said, oh, look what they're eating behind you. And I'm thinking to myself, it's better be worth the turnaround, oh yeah, poached eggs on toast, such an interesting choice for breakfast. And just to get up in the morning, I need to have a Voltaren double espresso shot just to get to the bathroom. And I don't have to tell you guys how many times I make that trip to the bathroom every night, but it's a lot, right? And then when I get there, I pee in Morse code. Dip, 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 dash, 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 dip, dip, dip. It's an SOS of my life. But I just end up sitting down when I go to the toilet now. I've lost all dignity in that area. It takes too long to wait for it. But you can tell how old someone is by how loud the groan is when they get up from a chair, especially if they've been sitting there for quite a long time. If you're in your 50s, you don't make a sound at all. You get up like you're a kangaroo hopping across the Heritage Park on a Sunday morning. Like that, no problem, no sound. But when you're in your 60s, you've been there for a while, then you make this additional sound, you made it. 70s, you, woo, yeah, ooh, I got up. In your 80s, it's horrible. You sit there for quite a while before you even make a move. You, woo, yeah, that's when you know you're old. Yeah, you sit there for ages. But we're all going to die, and you look surprised. You didn't know? Of course you know, but you're sitting there thinking, I can't die now. I'm not going to die now. I'm watching Alan Love on stage. You can't die now. But you don't know, do you? Right? It can happen any time. Like, you feeling all right, mate? Yeah, good. You look a little pale. I've got a defib in the back if you need to use it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we don't know. So, but this is how we go around our lives with the knowledge in the back of our brain somewhere. It's not even on our 4-5 year plan, right? Like we're not thinking, oh yeah, downsize, sell a house, get rid of the kids if we can, and oh yeah, prepare for death, right? So we don't know. But so I'm thinking, but we all know that they're cranking up the big barbecue for us all down there at Rookwood. It's got our name on it. But you know, when you get to my age, you start to realise that, you know, the days are numbered. You know, I've got a few good years left, but you know, I'm getting towards the end of it. It's not the end of the world, but you know, I'm getting a good look at it from where I am. So it started me thinking about my own death and how, you know, it could possibly end, and how if I could possibly select some sort of ending, you know. And because I'm the last line of us Lovells, right? I have 2 sisters. There's no brothers, no nothing. So I'm sort of like a special snowflake in that way. I'm an endangered species. If I was an animal like a panda, right, I'd be put in a protected habitat. I'd be locked up and be fed, you know, really good food and forced to mate with all these other pandas. And I'm thinking, wow, that's not a bad idea. What was about that for an ending? And I thought, well, I could come back as a Buddhist, you know, and change my religion, come back as a panda, because there's some pretty cute looking pandas out there, you know. There's some nice looking pandas. So that's one possible ending. So in that end, we decided to move up to the Central Coast a few years ago to be closer to my parents, to help them out with their ending, you know, because they you know, live on their own, they're fiercely independent, they're in their 90s, and they don't want to accept any outside help. So we thought we'd move up there and help out where we could, right? And like, I didn't want to move up to the Central Coast because, you know, my parents moved up there in 1976. They built their dream home, thought they'd found heaven, but what they'd found was heaven's waiting room, you know. In 1976, they built a 3-bedroom brick veneer bungalow with 1 bathroom and a garage big enough to house their Millard caravan, right? They bought the entire Grey Nomad package. They were living the dream, right? So I've been making that trip up the Central Coast from Sydney for 50 years. And I don't know how many times that I have almost fallen asleep at the wheel. And I think subconsciously I'd rather die than go and live on the Central Coast. So this was a big deal for me to go up there and help out with my parents. Because, you know, Central Coast is at the epicenter of this silver tsunami wave, you know. There's a baby boomer boom right now at the moment, and Central Coast is at the epicenter of this thing, because there's 4 million people over the age of 65 in Australia, and by 2050 there's going to be 8 million. That's a lot of cranky old bastards, isn't it? Right? And there's a few things you can bet your life on, that when you turn 65, you start to act a little bit more like an arsehole, right? Because you start telling it like it is, right? You've had enough, and you start to tell it like it is, and people don't like it a lot of times. So that's what happens. So, and then in ancient cultures, people would have a place to go and die, right? The Egyptians had the pyramids, the ancient Greeks had the underworld, the modern Greeks, they have Manicville, and people from Sydney, they have the Central Coast. Yeah. So I didn't want to go up there, and I don't want to be disrespectful of the Central Coast, but the Central Coast, or Centrelink Coast as it's more commonly known, or Blacktown by the sea, right? Which I think is very disrespectful to Blacktown. But there's good and bad in every situation. Like, I was in the car park of Woolies at Woolgoolga the other day, and packing away my groceries. Now, Woolgoolga is an Aboriginal word, right? Well, it's 2 words, because in Aboriginal culture, they don't have plural words. Like, if we have a body of water, we call it a lake, right? And if there's a few lakes, we call it lakes, right? So Woi means water, and Woi means place of many waters, right? So I'm packing away the groceries in the car park of Woolies, or I should say Woolies, place of many groceries. And this woman comes up to me, and she stares at me with the piercing steel blue eyes of an ice addict, right? And then she waves her hands and says, "We've all got to go sometime," and ducks down, right? And I can still see it through the car window, because I'm thinking, they're going to shoot us, right? They're going to have to take a shot at us here in the car park of Woolies. And then she starts smiling at me, right? Displaying very few teeth. And I realise then she's taking a piss in the car park of Woolies, right? Yeah. And I'm thinking, you know, being the sort of guy that always wants to help out, I had plenty of toilet paper, because it was COVID, I was stacking up. And I said, "Have you got a toilet paper?" And she says, she looks at me as if to say, what sort of woman do you think I am? She pulls out a tissue, right, pats down, hitches up her pants, and then strolls off with the confidence of an ice addict who's just had a hit, right? And then gives me the finger. I walk around to the other side of the car, and I look at the pool of piss that she's left there, and I think to myself, boy, place of many waters. And it does. It takes many different types of waters to build a whole community. And the reason us baby boomers have turned out the way we have, I reckon it was mainly because of our parents' generation. They grew up in the Depression, lived through the Second World War. They were tough, right? Their parents didn't tuck them into bed. They didn't have beds. They just slept on the floor, right? They were tough because they were living under the threat of that a world war could end their life as they know it, right? They were tough. My parents' generation lived through the Great Depression, the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Cold War. That's a lot of wars to live through in one generation, right? So, that were tough. And I almost went to the Vietnam War. Conscription was in, right? And my number was coming up. I was 18 years of age. And Gough Whitlam got in, right? And he stopped the conscription. And we got out of Vietnam. And thank God for Gough, comrade. And but my biggest fear was not that I was going to go to Vietnam and maybe get tortured by Viet Cong and have bamboo shoved up my finger. No, I had a shoulder-length mullet, right? And I'm thinking, oh no, they're going to cut my hair. That's how tough I was. Can't touch my hair. Yeah, but it made it tough for us boomers because our parents were tough. We had nothing to complain about, did we? I go to Dad. I said, "Oh, Dad, can I have a new toy truck?" And they said, "Toy truck? I'll give you a toy truck, you ungrateful little shit. Go and get your own job and pay for your own toy truck." I was only 5, a bit hard. And but my old man was old school, hard. He didn't take his car to the mechanics to get fixed. He'd fix that thing himself, right? He had an E.H. Holden station wagon. It was his pride and joy, right? And if it ever went wrong, he would fix that thing himself. He'd have it up on a jack, he'd have the engine up on a hoist, and he'd be working on it, going through the E.H. Holden owner's manual page by page, and it'd be covered in grease. He'd go through page by page until that car was fixed, right? He'd ride his push bike to work, right, while the car was getting fixed. No second car for our family. And we had to walk to school. My 2 sisters and other kids in the street. We'd trottle off to school. It was 5 kilometres, right? It wouldn't happen today. These millennials wouldn't allow that to happen. Oh no, I have to take Sebastian to school because a predator might pick him up, right? And I didn't even know what a pedophile was when I was a kid. I thought when I first heard that word, I thought it was an implement you used to trim your toenails, And my father's attitude was, well, for bullshit. He's 5, he can walk to school. If a pedo picks him up, might teach him to run faster. Oh, I mean, I'm mucking around here. But so that wouldn't. And Mum, she was pretty tough. Her nickname was the General. She, I don't know where she got the nickname from, but she wasn't no 1-star general. She was the 5-star number. She had some special qualities, like she had ESP. She was like a stealth bomber that hovered around the house. She knew what was going on in every single room. And silence to her wasn't golden. It was suspicious. And I'd be in the room, doing some good, clean, wholesome fun, like super gluing my sister's fingers together, or lighting my own farts to see if they would turn blue. Just mucking around. She'd come swooping in with a feather duster and she'd clean me up, then lock me in my room and make me, wait till my father got home. Mum was the entree, Dad was the main meal, and dessert was me licking my wounds. It was tough being me and the boomer in these days. But Mum had some quirky things about her cleaning too. Like to her, the house was an expression of who she was as a person. Clean house, clean mind, and it was like she had these bugs in her brain, that she had to get out. She was obsessed by cleaning. She was always, vacuuming and cleaning up with a feather duster. And she had an apron on. She'd have her hair done. She'd have gloves on. She had a holster for her feather duster. She was like a gunslinger. She'd see dust and she'd clean it up, put it back in the holster. Sometimes she was using the feather duster for what it was actually meant for and not disciplining her dickhead son. And that's why to this day, I can't stand cleaning. I have a real problem with cleaning because I was traumatised by cleaning implements used by my mother. So, and dinner time at our place was pretty different because, Mum, she loved cleaning, but she wasn't too good on the cooking, So she didn't like cooking. She was always on a diet, So there was a lot of tension at the dinner table. And so I'm the fastest eater in the known universe because I had to get out of the dinner table real quick because, there were two reasons. There was a lot of sharp implements on the dinner table which caused some serious harm, and I wanted to get out of doing the dishes. So I would develop this, eat real fast and then develop this quick case of diarrhea. So, oh, God, and I'd sit in the toilet and I'd wait until I heard the very last dish being done and put away by my sisters. But the toilet was my safe place because it was the only room in the house that had a lock on it. Yeah, spent a lot of time in the toilet. But my parents, they really couldn't work me out much. Not that they tried that hard. Like my mother was always saying, "You're just like your Uncle Dick." Right? Now Uncle Dick was a hopeless loser. He was a career criminal, ended up in jail. I mean, I'm not even close to getting to jail yet. And then she'd say stuff like, why can't you be more like your sisters? Right? And I thought, she wants me to be a girl? I was confused, And I didn't have a really close relationship with my father because I couldn't get close to him because he was never there emotionally or physically because he did shift work at Mascot Airport. So if he was ever at home, he would be sleeping off a night shift, and then if he had a day off, he was off playing tennis somewhere, So I didn't feel like I connected with him, and I always felt like I was a disappointment to him because I didn't grow up playing his favourite sport, soccer, and I ended up being a cyclist. That was my main sport, right? In the 70s, right, I wore lycra and shaved my legs, right? Way before Olivia Newton-John got physical with it. And this is in the 70s when men had hair forever. Long hair, facial hair, nasal hair, back hair, big hairy chest with gold medallions. This is in the time in the 70s when a Brazilian was just a person from Brazil, Yeah, so, and my father, the last indignation for my father was when I gave up being an electrician to become an actor. And he went, "What are you, some sort of homo?" Couldn't work me out at all. But my father, he suffered from undiagnosed PTSD. He went to war at 18 and fought in New Guinea. And the experience traumatised him. He came back, he never really recovered. He couldn't express himself in any way, he couldn't talk about it, like a lot of men. He came back a broken man. His violent outbursts and his mood swings were all symptoms of PTSD. So after we'd been up in the Central Coast for about a year, I get a call from my mother, and she says, "Can you take Dad Jack to the doctors?" I said, "Yeah, fine." And she said, "You better get the doctor to check out a scratch near his pacemaker on his chest." I said, "Okay, yeah, sure." Now, Dad had always been a really active guy. He played tennis 2 or 3 times a week, and right up until he was about 93. And then it just got too painful for him, and he had to stop. And for the first time in his life, he realised he had nothing to live for. Tennis was his entire life. And then he just wanted to end it. He wanted to get out of there. And he was keep asking me, he said, "You must know someone who's got a pill who can, end this thing for me." And I said, "Dad, I can't do anything, ethically, morally, or legally." And he said, I'd jump off that fucking cliff down there if I could walk that far. He wanted to go. And it was causing so many problems between my mother and him. They'd been together for 70 years, and they'd gotten on pretty well, really well for 70 years. They were inseparable, really. And this was causing so many fights between them because she didn't want him to go because she knew that she'd be on her own when he left. And he didn't care. He just wanted to, he'd had enough and he wanted to go. And I went round there one day and they were at each other's throats and said, is this how you want to end your last days, fighting like this with each other? And they couldn't stop. So I was in the doctor's surgery with Dad. The doctor pulls up his shirt and literally the doctor's jaw just drops on the ground because what had happened was Dad had been scratching away at this pacemaker and the skin had got all infected and the metal of the pacemaker was hanging out through the skin. And because he had no movement in his neck, he couldn't see down there and he hadn't seen it. And I thought it was ironic that Mum had said it was just a scratch. It was horrible. Anyway, so the doctor said, you're going to have to take him to Royal North Shore Hospital and get it operated on. So we take him down to Royal North Shore, and the surgeon rang me up and said, this is a pretty serious operation, and there's every chance at his age he could die on the operating table. And I said, look, if that happened, he'd be a very happy man. And suicide by surgery was a good option for Dad. Anyway, but the doctor was a deeply religious man. He said, I'll be doing everything I can to keep him alive. And true to his word, Dad sailed through the operation. I was in his hospital room when he came to, and he was just sort of focusing his eyes, and Dad realised where he was and that I was there, and he took one look at me and went, fuck. He did not want to be there at all. And I just felt this wave of disappointment, you know, another thing I'd failed to do, I'd failed to do that Freudian thing of killing my father. Yeah, so, and then started the long process of Dad willing himself to death. And the irony was that they after having the operation to change his pacemaker from one side of his chest to the other, they turned the pacemaker off and they stopped all medication. They upped the morphine to make him comfortable. And over the next 2 weeks, apart from my two sisters and I visited him every day. Mum didn't come down from the Central Coast to say her last goodbyes. She said, I said goodbye to him up there, that was enough. And Dad died alone at 2 a.m. in the morning on the 16th of August 2018. And I rang Mum the next day and I said that Dad passed away last night. And I said, but he's in good company. Aretha Franklin died the same day. Mum said, she can't sing. She was giving Aretha no respect at all and not much respect to Dad either. But my relationship with Dad was always difficult because of the PTSD. He was a hard person to get to know. He couldn't express himself in any way much. But he was a really good man. I respected him and I loved him. But it was difficult for him. He never ever said those 3 words to me that he loved me, which is a shame. And because of this PTSD, he was trapped inside this body, you know. But this is a song for Jack. It was so right, it was so wrong, almost at the same time. The pain and ache a heart can take, no one really knows. When the memories cling and keep you there till there's no longer care, you can let go now. It's wrong for me to cling to you. Somehow I just needed time from what was to be. It's not like me to hold somebody down. But when the memories cling and keep you there till you no longer care, I can let go now. I can let go now. Yeah, thank you. Now I'm going to talk about my relationship with my partner, Susan. Susan and I have been together for 30 years, and we're not married. Susan doesn't believe in marriage, she believes in equality. And she somehow thinks that if we were married, I would somehow be in control of her. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I know who the boss of me is, and it's not me. In fact, I'm pretty sure that I've married my mother, although, you know, there's a lot of benefits in not marrying, you know. But we have 2 sons together, right? And because we are not married, they're a couple of bastards. And I love those bastards to death. But that doesn't, just because they are bastards doesn't mean that we don't have to get to pay for them for the rest of our lives. We still get that joy and pleasure. And the secret is not out. I mean, it's out really. I mean, I'm the one who's married above my station, where you know where I come from. But Susan comes from a long line of doctors on the lower North Shore of Sydney. And you can imagine their joy and pleasure when they got to meet me for the first time. And then Sue's mum said to me, "So Alan, what do you do for a living?" And I said, "Well, I'm a comedian." And she said, "That's funny." I said, "No, that's what I do." "Oh, really?" And the blood sort of drained from her face. And I said, "Well, yeah, it's not brain surgery." And then she said, "Have you met Susan's brother Michael? He is a brain surgeon." Yeah. So and if I could go back and turn back time and change that moment, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression, I would have told them anything, because now, because they just never ever take me serious when I'm actually being serious. Like, please give us some money. And they just get out of here. You funny thing. But like I said, Susan, I've married up in this relationship. Susan, she's successful, she's smart, she's like a walking, talking filing cabinet. I don't need Google, I've got Sugal. She tells me everything I need to know. Sometimes she doesn't always tell me what to do. Sometimes she writes a list, which is very helpful. And in this modern day and age, she can text me, right? She can get me anywhere. She'll say, "Where are you now?" "I'm in the kitchen." "Unload the dishwasher." "Where are you now?" "I'm in the bathroom." "Clean the toilet." "Where are you now?" "Woolgoolga." "Well, bring home some bananas." Yeah, she can get me anywhere. But the other day she texted me, she said, "I'm not wearing any underwear." I thought I'd better get myself home, right? Then she texted me again, she said, because she forgot to put the washing in the dryer. So I didn't rush home like that. But Susan's always saying, I don't listen to her. I think it was her that said that. Yeah. And then the other day she said, "I think you're going deaf. You're going to have to get your hearing tested, right?" So I did. I got my hearing tested, and it turns out I've got perfect hearing for a person my age, right? So, stuff you, Susan. And but what I do have is male pattern deafness, right? It's a horrible affliction. I think a few of the guys in the audience might have the same thing. And how it works for me is, Sue can be standing there in the room, I can see her lips moving, but I don't hear any sound. It's like I'm being in a silent movie without subtitles. Then all of a sudden, at the end of something she said, she says, "Are you listening?" And I go, What? She said, "You never listen, do you?" I said, "Well, yeah, the thing is, I would listen. The thing is, I can only hear what I want to hear. And what Susan's saying sometimes is not really what I want to hear. So that's the male pattern deafness. But, so Susan is always on a diet, right? Like I said, I married my mother. She's very similar like that. But how it works out with Susan is that if we're at a restaurant and I always order dessert, right? It's my favourite time of the day. I think it's really important. I think the main meal is just an excuse to get to dessert, right? It's that important. And when the waiter comes out and he says, "Are we having any dessert tonight?" I go, "Oh, yes indeedy, we certainly are." Then Sue says, "No, I won't. Right? but he'll share, right? And then he says, I'll bring 2 spoons. And this drives me nuts, right? Because it's the most important time of the day for me. And then I said, so why don't you order a whole dessert, eat what you can, and I'll eat the rest. I can eat 1.5 desserts, no problema, right? She says, no, I won't, because I'll eat the whole thing. So the waiter comes out, brings 2 spoons, and I sit there and be nice and smile. And Susan eats half my lemon cheesecake, and I'm not doing any good at sharing, stuff. But we're always having little skirmishes on the battlefield of domesticity. Like the other day, I had to borrow her face mask. Now this was an expensive face mask, right? It cost $25, which is a lot for a face mask, but it had a red and ochre on it, and it was an Aboriginal artwork on it. And some of the money went back to the artist, which is all for a good thing, which is great. Susan's a caring, thoughtful person like that. But I misplaced it. Now, I didn't lose it. Losing it would have been bad. I just misplaced it. And she said, I can't give you anything. You always lose things. You always destroy everything. I said, no. It'll turn up something. 2 days later, she comes bouncing into the room with this pink shirt, right? And I said, that's a nice shirt. Where'd you get that? She said, this used to be my white shirt, expensive white shirt. I said, well, why'd you dye it? Then she pulls out the face mask. I said, you found the face mask. This is great. She said, no, you idiot. You left it in one of your shirts and it ran and dyed my expensive white shirt. And I said, just calm down, take a breath. This is a beautiful win-win situation of magnificent proportions. I said, not only have you found your expensive face mask, but now you've got a beautiful new pink shirt. She said to me, she's like talking to a child. And I would have answered her right then and there, but by then I had my mouth full of jelly babies. I'm on a very steep learning curve with my relationship with Susan. When we first got together, I had so much to learn. Like I didn't know that there's a right and wrong way to put the toilet roll on. Did you know this? Yeah, there's an under and over method. And apparently the under method is completely wrong. Yeah, who would have known? And then there's a right and wrong way to pack the dishwasher. Yeah? And you're not supposed to wipe your face on the tea towel. Yeah, that's done. And look, the Bible has 10 commandments to run your entire life, right? Susan has 146 rules just for the bloody kitchen. Yeah. And look, I'm always getting things wrong. Like the other day, she said to me, what would you like for dinner? And I told her that apparently I was wrong. It's funny that, isn't it? But, like when you've been in a relationship as long as Sue and I have, things get pretty predictable in the bedroom, And I always like to, try and experiment as much as I possibly can, but it's risky because, you never know what it's like, and what if she doesn't like me with makeup on and a French maid's outfit, all sort of stuff. And then, we tried role play, but no, she's not a very good actor, so I couldn't take her seriously. And then I just threw this thing in the mix. I said, well, what about if we try a threesome? And I was really surprised she didn't consider it. And she said, well, who are you thinking? And I said, well, what about your sister? Yeah. She wasn't too fond of that idea. I just was thinking, keeping it all in the family, that sort of thing. Then she said to me, why don't you treat me like you did when we first got together, right? So I did. I said, we went out for dinner, and then I dropped her off at her parents' place on the way home. Wasn't fond of that idea either. But so we came up with the idea of buying a dildo. Right? Dildo. And, it wasn't my idea, it was more her idea, right? I was a little apprehensive about buying a dildo because I thought it was, a reflection on my prowess as a man, or my lack of prowess as a man. So I was a bit nervous about it. So we went up to the cross. This is before the lockdowns and everything, and the cross was just heaving with live action, drug addicts on the street, hawkers trying to entice you into strip clubs and all that sort of stuff. Prostitutes would come up to you and hit on you. But, hey, big boy, do you want a head job for $20? And I said, I'm with her. She said, I don't care, she can watch. So Yeah, it was all of that. So we find this adult sex toy shop, and we go up these stairs, and everything's really dark, and there's these strange lights. And when you're walking the carpet, it feels like your shoes are sticking to the carpet. And there's these guys in overcoats, doing weird stuff and making sounds. So we see this counter at the back of the store, and it's this pulsing blue light, and we walk over, and there that they are, these array of dildos under this blue pulsing light. And these things look like they could do some serious damage. They're like military-grade weapons, something that Kim Jong-un might have targeted directly at America and wipe out a few states with. So we're standing there, and then the guy comes out to service, and he's sporting one of the sleaziest hairstyles known to mankind. It's a bald head with the ponytail at the back, right, that one. And he's wearing a black t-shirt with what I first thought were coffee stains out the front. I think, no, that's not coffee. And he says, and Sue says to him, "We're looking for a dildo." Right? And he looks at me and says, looking to spruce things up in the boudoir, are we? And then winks at me, right? And I'm pretty nervous as it is, so I look away and I thought, well, look, it's mainly for her. And then he looks at me again and he says, "No shit, Sherlock. Happy wife, happy life," right? And then he turns to her, Sue, and says, "What do you like? Clit, vag, big, small?" She has no idea what he's talking about, of course. Then he turns back to me and says, "Coming up short in the cunnilingus, are you, mate?" Yeah, I'm freaking out here. And Sue says, throws me under the bus. She says, "He's trying," right? And then then he says to her, "Do you like big dicks, little dicks, or average dicks?" Right? To her. She says size isn't important. I'm thinking, yes it is. Yes it is. And then he looks at me and says, "I'm thinking small dick." Then he pulls out this thing, this purple thing, plonks it on the glass table, it's vibrating everywhere, and it had this revolving hedge, with ball bearings in the middle. And on the top of it, it had this alien thing, looked like a love child between Sigourney Weaver and the alien. And he said, "That there is the money shot, right there, clitoral stimulation, happy wife a long time." I had enough by then. I just grabbed it, headed for the door. Best $150 I've ever spent, that's for sure. Anyway, look, now I'm going to talk about my mother, right? Now, my mum now understands what Dad was going through when he wanted to die, because she's had enough and she wants to go herself, right? Which is a shame, because I think she could do a lot more with her life, but she just keeps saying, "I've been there and I've done that," and she's 93. She's pretty sprightly. She's still sharp. She doesn't move around that much, but she could do a lot more. I take her out once or twice a week for what she calls tatars, for drives, for lunch or coffee, and we crank up the Andre Rieu volume. Like a lot of women her age, she thinks Andre Rieu is sex on a stick. She just loves that guy. And my mum, she left school at 14, the earliest possible age she could, because she had to get out and pay rent to her parents, because her father was a hopeless gambler and they never had any money, and so she had to pay her own way. And being the child of a gambler, life was completely unpredictable. She didn't know what was going to happen from one day to the next. So her cleaning, her obsessive cleaning, was a way she could exact some sort of control over her life. And Mum has always had a great sense of humour, and she was always quick to laugh. And it was my unwritten role in the family to be able to make her laugh and to relieve tension and lighten the mood a bit. And it would give me the greatest joy to be able to reduce her to tears of laughter. But now her greatest joy is Andre Rieu. When we drive along, we crank up the volume, we listen to Andre, and nothing gives me more greater pleasure than to see Mum conducting the orchestra along with Andre and enjoying herself. And it's a shame that that she feels like she can't live a life anymore, and she really misses her husband, Dad. But that's what her life is at the moment. So I've come to the end of a search of an ending. And I'm no real clearer about how my life is going to end or what I'm going to do, but I found out a few things along the way that getting old doesn't have to be a dark and a dangerous proposition. And in fact, getting old is something to be celebrated, because a lot of people don't get this far, and it's a privilege. In the words of Abe Lincoln, it's not the years in your life, it's the life in your years that matter. Because when I was in my 20s, I was worried sick about what other people would think about me, but now I realise no one's been thinking about me at all. And that's good. So, but the one thing I have found out, I don't want to die alone in a hospital room with no one around. I want to be surrounded with as many people and friends as I possibly can, and my family. And I want to go at my own terms with as much dignity as I possibly can. And I think with progressive thinking in the future, we can all choose our best possible ending. Thank you and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?